These updated highway regulations are already in effect. Millions of drivers across America may get fined before they even understand what has changed. Stop for a moment and read this carefully before getting behind the wheel tomorrow. Effective immediately, revised highway rules and stricter traffic enforcement standards are surprising drivers throughout the United States. We are not discussing small policy tweaks that officers will ignore during some unofficial adjustment period. We are discussing aggressive enforcement that begins instantly, with penalties starting the second you make an error that was completely acceptable only a few days earlier. Here's the part that should honestly worry you. Most drivers receiving tickets over the next several weeks will not be reckless motorists. They will not be people racing through school zones at unsafe speeds. They will be normal, cautious, responsible drivers who simply never realized the laws had changed, drivers who entered highways exactly the same way they have for decades, drivers who parked in the same familiar place every Tuesday morning for years, drivers who picked up their phone while stopped at a red light without placing a call or sending a message. Those are the drivers now facing fines they never expected. Some will receive points on their driving record that raise their insurance costs by hundreds of dollars every year. Others will be ordered to attend mandatory traffic safety classes, and a smaller but still meaningful number may face license reviews that threaten their ability to continue driving independently. This guide explains every major highway rule revision currently being enforced throughout the United States, which drivers are most likely to be affected by each individual update, and exactly what you should do before your next trip to ensure you remain fully protected. Every detail in this guide comes from publicly available traffic law updates, official state DMV instructions, and law enforcement priority announcements. Read every section carefully. Share this with every driver you know, because the information in this guide could realistically protect you from a fine, points on your license, or something far more serious. Rule change number 1, construction zone speed enforcement. The update expected to affect the highest number of drivers. Construction zone traffic regulations have existed for many years. Every driver understands the general idea. Reduce speed in work areas. Drive carefully near construction workers. Follow lowered speed limits. But here is what specifically changed and why it matters so much now. In the past, the doubled fine policy in construction zones only applied when workers were physically present and actively performing work. Drivers would see signs explaining that fines doubled when workers were present. If workers were taking lunch, if the project paused for the evening, if you passed through at 6 a.m. before crews arrived, the doubled fine technically did not apply. That distinction has now been removed. Under the revised enforcement standard currently being used across highway construction areas nationwide, fines are doubled at every hour in any officially marked construction zone. The existence of orange signs identifying an active construction zone is now legally enough to activate the enhanced penalty. It no longer matters whether any workers can actually be seen. It no longer matters what time you drive through the area. It no longer matters whether visible construction activity is taking place when you pass through. If orange construction signs are displayed, enhanced penalties apply. End of discussion. Law enforcement officials have publicly stated that they are actively issuing citations to drivers exceeding the posted construction zone speed limit by even 1 mile per hour over the limit. There is no cushion. There is no unofficial grace allowance. 1 mile per hour above the construction zone limit is now a ticketable offense carrying doubled fine consequences. What this means for your everyday driving habits is simple. The second you notice orange highway signs warning of a construction zone, you should treat that location as though a full construction crew is standing directly beside your vehicle. Reduce your speed to the posted limit immediately. Maintain that speed for the entire marked area, not only where visible work is happening, and do not return to normal highway speed until you have completely exited the zone and passed the signs indicating construction has ended. The financial consequences of a single construction zone citation under the updated doubled fine standard can easily reach several $100s depending on your state. add increased insurance premiums caused by a moving violation on your record, and the total cost of one brief moment of distraction inside a construction zone can quickly surpass $1,000 in combined consequences. Drive with that reality in mind. Rule change 2. Highway merging laws, long-time driving habits now considered illegal. This is the update likely to create the greatest disbelief among experienced drivers. If you have been driving for 20, 30, or even 40 years, the merging method you originally learned and practiced your entire life may now qualify as a traffic violation. Here is what changed. The old habit of slowing down dramatically or nearly stopping at the end of an entrance ramp before merging into highway traffic has now been officially revised in multiple states to reflect updated traffic safety standards. Under the new rules currently being enforced, drivers are legally expected to use the entire length of the entrance ramp to accelerate and match the speed of existing highway traffic before completing a merge. Intentionally slowing down or stopping at the merge point is now categorized as creating a dangerous traffic condition. If you slow to nearly a stop on an entrance ramp and the driver behind you must brake suddenly or swerve to avoid hitting you, you may be held legally responsible for creating that danger. This can lead to a traffic citation even if no accident takes place. If an accident does happen behind you because of your sudden slowdown at the merge point, you can also be found legally liable for the crash and any injuries or property damage that follow. Police officers are now specifically monitoring entrance ramps during busy commute periods as part of the current enforcement campaign. Officers observing on-ramp traffic are watching for this exact behavior pattern. The correct merging method under current traffic law is to fully use the acceleration lane. Match your speed to the vehicles already traveling in the lane you are entering. Signal your intention to merge clearly and in advance. Identify an opening in traffic and merge smoothly at highway speed without creating a speed difference that forces surrounding drivers to react abruptly. If the entrance ramp is too short or traffic conditions truly make it impossible to reach highway speed before the ramp ends, you should yield fully and wait for a safe opening rather than forcing a dangerous low-speed merge into fast-moving traffic. What is no longer legally acceptable under the updated standard is slowing to a crawl or stopping at the merge point before attempting to edge into moving traffic. Practice the updated method. Change your habits because this is a major enforcement priority at the moment. Rule change 3. Prescription medication and driving. Essential information every driver should understand. This section includes information that could create serious legal consequences for millions of American drivers, especially those managing long-term medical conditions with prescription medications. Law enforcement officers now possess broader legal authority to request chemical testing from drivers suspected of impairment, even when alcohol is not involved. Specifically, officers may now request blood testing or saliva testing from any driver they reasonably believe may be impaired, and that suspected impairment may be linked to prescription medication rather than alcohol or illegal drugs. This idea is not completely new within traffic law. Driving under the influence of impairing substances has always included prescription medications. What has changed is the level of enforcement focus, the expanded officer authority to request testing, and the revised thresholds used to decide whether detected medication levels legally qualify as impairment. Certain types of prescription medications commonly taken by American adults for legitimate health conditions can now result in driving under the influence charges if they are discovered in your system above specific threshold levels, and your driving behavior gave officers reasonable justification to initiate the stop and follow-up testing. These categories include certain sleeping medications and sedatives, certain anti-anxiety medications within the benzodiazepine family, certain prescription pain medications including opioid-based drugs, some antihistamines prescribed for allergy treatment, and certain muscle relaxers. Let me make something extremely important completely clear. Nothing in this guide suggests that you stop taking medications prescribed by your doctor. You should never alter, reduce, or discontinue prescription medications without direct instruction from the physician who prescribed them. Doing that can lead to serious and dangerous medical consequences. What this update does mean is that you should have a direct and honest discussion with your prescribing doctor regarding your specific medications and their potential effect on driving ability. Ask your doctor directly whether any current prescriptions include warnings about operating motor vehicles. Ask whether dosage timing can be adjusted to reduce possible impairment during the hours you need to drive. Ask whether any of your medications are known to produce symptoms that could appear to law enforcement officers as impairment, even if you personally feel fully alert and capable. Your physician can also provide documentation regarding your prescription medications that should remain inside your vehicle. If you are ever stopped and tested, documentation proving your prescriptions were legally obtained and properly managed offers important legal protection. Not understanding medication-related impairment laws is not considered a legal defense in court. Protecting yourself requires proactive communication with your healthcare provider. Rule Change 4. Distracted driving laws. The expanded definition, surprising drivers nationwide. Most American drivers believe they already understand distracted driving laws. You cannot text while driving. You cannot make calls without a hands-free device. Drivers have heard this for years and assume they are following the law correctly. The definition of prohibited distracted driving behavior has now been greatly expanded in most states. And the broader definition is catching drivers who sincerely believe they are complying with the law. Here is the most important change. Simply holding your cell phone in your hand while operating a vehicle is now a ticketable offense in most states, even if you are not actively using the device. You do not need to be texting. You do not need to be placing a call. You do not need to be looking at the screen. The violation is the act of physically holding the phone while the vehicle remains in operation. This rule also applies when your vehicle is stopped at a traffic light. It applies while sitting in slow-moving traffic. It applies inside parking lots if the engine is still running. The phone must be completely out of your hand and either secured in an approved dashboard or windshield mount, placed inside a cup holder, stored in a purse or bag, or positioned anywhere that does not require physical contact with your hand. Police officers have received direct instructions to prioritize observation of this behavior. Officers are specifically watching for phones in drivers' hands during traffic stops, at intersections, and throughout normal highway patrol activity. First offense fines start around $150 in most areas and increase significantly for repeat offenses. Multiple distracted driving violations within a designated period may trigger automatic license review procedures and mandatory driver improvement classes. The practical solution is simple and only requires a minor change to your daily routine. Buy an inexpensive phone mount for your dashboard or windshield. Before starting your vehicle, place your phone in the mount or store it somewhere out of reach. If you need to make a call, connect through your vehicle Bluetooth system or use a wired or wireless earpiece that allows completely hands-free communication. If you need to check directions or respond to a message, pull entirely off the roadway into a legal parking area before touching your device. One affordable phone mount can completely eliminate your risk of this violation. Rule Change 5. Parking distance from crosswalks. The violation millions of drivers are committing today. Parking regulations near intersections and crosswalks have now been updated, and the change is specific enough that drivers parking in familiar locations they have used for years may suddenly begin receiving citations without understanding the reason. The revised standard in most jurisdictions now states that no vehicle may park within 25 feet of a marked or unmarked crosswalk at an intersection. In many places, the previously enforced distance was only 15 to 20 feet from the crosswalk. That extra 5 to 10 feet may sound insignificant, but think about how many parking spaces near intersections that drivers have used for years now fall inside the restricted area under the updated rule. The reason behind the increased required distance is pedestrian safety. Vehicles parked too close to crosswalks create visual obstructions that prevent both drivers and pedestrians from clearly seeing one another before the pedestrian enters the roadway. Expanding the required clear distance improves visibility and reduces pedestrian accidents at intersections. From an enforcement standpoint, officers do not need to witness a close call or safety issue in order to issue a parking ticket. Simply measuring the distance between your parked vehicle and the crosswalk is enough to issue a citation if your vehicle sits within the restricted area. Before parking near any intersection, carefully measure your distance from the crosswalk. Estimate the spacing. Look for painted curb markings identifying no parking areas. When uncertain, move farther away from the intersection to ensure you are safely outside the 25-foot restricted zone. A parking ticket may appear minor until you calculate the fine, along with any possible insurance reporting consequences. Rule Change 6. Failure to yield increased penalties and license consequences. Failure to yield violations have always existed within traffic law. What has changed is the seriousness of the penalties and the specific behaviors now receiving enforcement priority. Failing to yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian in any marked or unmarked crosswalk now carries a minimum fine of $200 in most states for a first offense. Beyond the financial punishment, a failure to yield violation now places a mandatory point on your driving record. In several states, a failure to yield conviction also activates a mandatory traffic improvement course requirement that must be completed within a designated period of time. The threshold for license review has also become stricter. 3 failure to yield violations within any 18-month period may now automatically trigger a formal license review process in most jurisdictions. A license review can result in additional testing requirements, license restrictions, or, in situations where a pattern of dangerous conduct is documented, license suspension. Crosswalks lacking traffic signals are specifically emphasized in current enforcement priorities. Drivers are legally required to yield to pedestrians in any marked crosswalk, regardless of whether traffic signals are present. If a pedestrian is already inside the crosswalk or is clearly preparing to enter it, you must stop fully and yield completely before continuing forward. The following distance update every highway driver should understand. The minimum safe and legally referenced following distance standard on highways has now been updated in official law enforcement guidance materials. The previous common recommendation of 1 car length for every 10 miles per hour of speed has now been replaced with a time-based standard. The current legally referenced minimum following distance is 3 seconds of travel time between your vehicle and the vehicle directly ahead during normal dry road conditions. During bad weather conditions, including rain, snow, fog, or ice, the recommended and legally referenced standard increases to 6 seconds of following distance. How should you measure 3 seconds of following distance? Watch the vehicle ahead pass a fixed object such as a road sign, bridge support, or lane marker. Count the seconds from the moment they pass that point until your vehicle reaches the same point. If you arrive at the fixed point in under 3 seconds, you are following too closely. If you become involved in a rear-end collision and the investigation determines that you were following too closely under the current standard, you may bear automatic responsibility for the accident regardless of the actions taken by the driver ahead. This is not a small technical detail. It is the legal standard used to determine financial and legal responsibility when crashes occur. Give yourself enough space. 3 seconds minimum, 6 seconds during severe weather. It remains the simplest and most effective legal protection available to every driver on every highway. Final summary: what every driver should do before the next trip. The highway regulations taking effect right now represent the most significant update to daily driving standards that many American drivers have experienced in years. These are not theoretical changes planned for the future. Enforcement is already active and immediate. Construction zones now carry doubled fines at all times, regardless of whether workers are present. Slowing to a stop at highway merge points is now a ticketable traffic violation. Holding your phone in your hand while driving is now illegal, even while stopped at red lights. Parking within 25 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection is now strictly enforced. Failure to yield now carries mandatory points and possible license review consequences. Following distance standards have now been formally updated and applied directly in liability decisions. You are now informed, you are now prepared, and that preparation truly matters because most drivers sharing the road with you tomorrow will not know any of this information. Drive carefully. Stay updated regarding your own state's DMV requirements. Speak with your doctor regarding any prescription medications you regularly take, and make the small practical adjustments necessary to stay compliant with each of these updated regulations. Share this guide with every driver you know. The information included here is too important to keep to yourself. This content is provided for general educational and informational purposes only. Traffic laws vary by state and jurisdiction. Always consult your individual state DMV website and qualified legal counsel for guidance that applies to your specific circumstances.